等一下把那个什么给你们。
啥呀？
我把
听到我吗？
正在录制，
好的。
能听到，能听到。但是我们这个 Go Live 这个网页它怎么显示不出来那种 gallery 啊？
不行吗？
视图。完了。你开一下你的屏幕试试呢？
我这样吗？
对对对，我看一眼啊。
好像在 YouTube 上面可以看到现在的 live。
哦，
可以可以。
我咋连不上我的 AirPods 破电脑？
有一个Roger 已经进入等候室，我先一会儿放他进来了，咱们先测试
OK
好。
对，
我这边我用我另一个电脑开着那个直播。我把我这个关了，看一下啊。我看一下我如果开我视频能行吗？开启视频。
嗯，所以我们有 live 吗？
有。
哦，
我把那个网址给你们。address。哎，有呢，OK，live address。我们这个名儿叫啥？你现在再开一下，我看能不能那个 gallery 的视图。
啊，你右上角好像是自己改成 gallery。
我知道，我是说那个我知道了，这个直播它只能那个就是直播的时候只有打开了那个摄像头的才行。
OK，
那我也打开试一下吧。
好的，没问题。
这能看见吗？直播的时候？
它有1分钟、2分钟的延迟，稍等啊。那可以看到，可以看到。
好的。
我穿着睡衣，我就不开了。看一下啊，现在是55。我稍等一下，我把那个放到群里。你这个姓名叫什么来着？哎呀，让我想一想。EqualOcean Webinar Future of
我在上厕所。
can be accessed。我也发到大群里。EO 网。
我在那个公司的 YouTube 旁边有一个留言的地方，
对，那个人是我，第一个人
是你吗？哦，好，我就对，可能
小号。
YouTube 上面也有一些人看，我就先把这个放在上面。
好的好的，等他回来之后，我就把那些人都放进来了。
好的，
然后你们期间如果有什么问题的话，给我发微信就可以。
对对对，另外 Chris，
你说。
之前说 Chris 说我们公司有一个 weekly newsletter，那一个是有一个链接吗？
Weekly newsletter，这我不知道啊。Weekly newsletter，
对，他好像跟我有提到，我今天要跟他们 promote 一下。
好的。我这个我之后跟你说吧，行吧？我先静音了，我把人都放进来了，有3个人已经过了。
好的好的，没问题。那我们先打开视频。Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so
Hey
much for
guys.
joining. We are still waiting for a few more people to join, and then we can get started.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Hey Sabrina, we're just waiting for a couple more to come in.
Sure. Hi, Shirley. Hi, Tommy.
Hello. We're
Tommy?
still waiting for Pedro and Nan.
Hey, Tommy.
Hold on, we're just waiting for one more. Then we can get started. Yep.
Hello, ladies.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Sabrina.
All right, sorry for the wait. We are still waiting for one more person to join.
Good.
How is everyone's tonight? Are you all doing great?
Yeah, it's pretty nice, even though it's unseasonably cold in California these days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this morning it was in the high 30s. So
California?
yeah, in
Oh, that's
California.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
we already had like 70s, 80s back 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the winter is over. It is obviously not.
Yeah, the
Well,
weather is kind of.
we're having an interesting time here in Europe at the moment. Let's just put it like that, without going
Yeah.
into detail. I haven't really noticed the weather very much. It's more other things.
You have bigger things to worry about at the moment. Where's your physical location in Europe, Roger?
So I'm in the UK, near Oxford. So yeah, I'm in Europe and very aware of that, more than I've been maybe in the whole of my lifetime, to be honest with you. Geography changes when big events happen. You know, you understand geography. I have a big map of the world in my office, but suddenly geography changes when there are significant events. You're very aware of exactly where you are in the world at times like this, I think.
Yes, it's definitely very interesting for us to invite like experts like you around the world, especially in different places as well. So it's our pleasure to have you to join this panel discussion overall.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I always like to listen and learn, and yeah, sometimes talk.
That's great. All right. We are still waiting for one more person, and sorry again for the wait. Let me talk to my colleague to get this sorted out as soon as possible.
Actually, Sasha, we can just start because I know it's very late for Roger. It's actually
Okay,
midnight.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So why
definitely.
don't we just start and then
Yes.
we'll go as along. Yeah.
Okay, so I will give like a brief opening remarks first. So thank you again for everyone to join our panel discussion tonight or in the morning or midnight, depending on where you're located. I am the business reporter at EqualOcean. My name is Sasha. Our company is basically a global tech media and investment research firm based in New York City that focuses on providing information services to many global investors and companies in different sectors. And we are also holding a principle of enhancing international cooperations between US and China. And that's why we are inviting like experts like you again to join this call. And we also have a weekly newsletters that shares our in-depth insights and research every single week. So after this conversation, our team member will send you the link to subscribe to our newsletter to stay in tune. And for our topic tonight, it will be about the future of transportation with a specific focus on electric vehicles. And it's really exciting to talk about this ever popular topic, especially in the evolution of electric vehicles in general. First of all, I would like to welcome Shirley from CarNext, who is our sponsor for this webinar tonight, to give a brief introduction of their company. And then I will hand it over to Tommy, who will be the moderator for this webinar to continue the conversation. So Shirley, if you are ready, it's all yours now.
Okay, is this time for the presentation? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me just share my screen. Actually, it's disabled. Do you mind enabling that for me?
Tommy, can you handle that? Or?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Cool.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Sabrina, I know you were talking about the temperature in Fahrenheit. I'm from Canada, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, we got like 2 degrees in Celsius.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
My husband is from Canada as well, and he always
Oh,
complains
nice.
about that America and Sri Lanka are the only 2 countries in the world use Fahrenheit.
Yes. And you guys also use US GAAP. That's the only thing.
Hi, Shirley. I think you can go ahead now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Can everyone just confirm, or someone confirm they can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All good.
Okay. Awesome. Hi, everyone. So my name is Shirley, and I'm a member of the Investor Relations team at Carnex. I am incredibly excited to be speaking to you all today on the topic of transportation, because what we are seeing is a disruption. So today, I'm going to talk about all the exciting changes and trends and what they mean for the transportation industry. But the one thing that I want you to remember is that all of these changes also present a lot of opportunity. The key is to recognize and act on those opportunities. It will take both the analytical and creative mind to imagine what the future will look like. So take yourself out of your comfort zone and use your imagination, because if you wait too long, there's the very real risk that you get pushed out. Take, for example, Nokia. In 2007, Nokia was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine, being dubbed as the cell phone king. And you can see right there in the title, it asks, can anyone catch Nokia? It's a bit of a rhetorical question now, obviously, because in that same year, Apple launched the iPhone. Disruption changes business models and industries quickly and swiftly, and there's no one too big or powerful to fall from grace. So what is driving disruption in the world today? It really stems from a fact of necessity. For centuries now, our societies have accepted that environmental degradation is the cost of growth. Well, now we have reached a tipping point, and we're quickly approaching a threshold at which time the damage will be irreversible. But advancements in technology have made it possible for us to combat that trend. A common misconception is that battling climate change will be very slow, inefficient, and costly, when actually many of the tools we need to achieve net zero emissions are already available. The key is not to try and fix existing carbon-intensive industries, but rather to replace them with newer, cleaner technology. And in fact, instead of being a financial burden, again, they present a great social and economic opportunity. So what is happening in the transportation industry specifically? This industry alone makes up 12% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. In order to minimize that, we are seeing a shift away from internal combustion engine vehicles to electric. The first thing to understand is the rate at which this change will happen. And if you think that this change will be a slow process, you're not looking at the evidence. When we look at the real rate that adoption happens, we see an S curve. This is because as technology enables technology and as they come together, costs decrease and capabilities increase until you reach a cusp, at which point the new then quickly sweeps out the old. So if you look at what has happened throughout history, S-curves are becoming increasingly steeper, which means that timelines for businesses to learn and adjust to consumer preferences are only getting shorter and shorter. So how far along is the adoption of electric vehicles? Well, we are already standing knee deep in it. And if you don't believe me, again, you're not paying attention. This is because electric vehicles not only stand to benefit the environment, ultimately they are more cost and resource efficient. And even if decisions are not being made for the sake of the environment, they will be made for the sake of business. In the last year alone, we saw a doubling of global EV sales penetration. And you can already see the shape of the S curve start to form. So over the past few years, the costs and capabilities of electric vehicles have continued to improve. With the last barrier of cost quickly deteriorating, what are the other underlying reasons driving this disruption? Why is electric better? Well, first of all, they're cheaper to drive. The cost of electricity compared to gas as it stands now is 10 times cheaper. EVs also have much fewer moving parts, and precise savings are hard to pin down, but take the real life example of New York City. In 2019, the city spent an average of 5 to 6 times less maintaining their electric fleet compared to their previous gas vehicles. And with a lifetime range of over 800,000 kilometers, you get 2.5 to 5 times the mileage more in an electric vehicle. This is especially important for fleets. And lastly, at the core of why electrification is disrupting the industry, it is that they simply generate greater consumer value. I'm going to come back to this one in a second. So at this point, a lot of people might be thinking, yes, all that sounds great, but what about, and let's talk about some of those. What about infrastructure? 32 countries have already set a mandatory target for all new passenger vehicles to be zero emission by 2040, and leading markets, including Canada, by 2035. That is just a little over a decade away. Countries around the world are making the move, and capital is pouring into building out the infrastructure. When change is inevitable, markets will make it happen. Now, what about if gas prices go back down? Will that mean consumers might want to go back to gas-powered vehicles? Well, to remain competitive, or at the very least be able to make government deadlines, automakers have already shifted capital to focus on R&D and supply chains for their electric offerings. So even if gas prices come back down, people are not coming back to an increasing number of options. And if you're unfamiliar with what the plans are, I encourage you to simply open up Google and type in, what automakers have electric cars? And the answer is every automaker. From Honda, who will only be selling EVs and hybrids in Europe by next year, all the way to Bentley, whose CEO, Adrian Hallmark, says, the future of Bentley will be fully electric. We are not only working on one electric car, but a family of electric cars. And what about the people who just want to drive a traditional gas-powered vehicle? Well, remember my last point in why electrification is inevitable. It just creates greater consumer value. And for those who don't understand disruption, Tony Seba has coined the phrase horse on wheels syndrome. When people moved from horses to cars, it was not a one-to-one replacement. Cars were the same in that they could get us somewhere, but there was much more value than that. We could travel longer distances and we didn't have to worry about the horses getting sick. Well, the same with gas combustion vehicles to electric. EVs were born out of a new age of technology with a focus on software and connectivity. They are more like computers on wheels rather than just engines. And that's not to say that there won't be collectors or enthusiasts who might own a gas-powered vehicle here and there, but on a grand scale, EVs will be the main method of transportation because they just make economic sense. Plus, take a look at Rivian's truck. Try doing that with your F-150. So at this point, I've talked so much about technology, but at the end of the day, it is humans that are the driving force behind it. And we humans are always driven by finding ways to generate value and live a better quality of life. EVs are just one of the many technologies converging together to give us a world where we will have more transportation, more freedom, and more mobility. The next layer of technology is the addition of autonomous driving. On the left there is a list of more than 40 companies investing tens of billions of dollars into autonomous driving. You see some familiar OEM names such as Ford, GM, Honda, and Volkswagen. This is because they see the value that autonomous driving has for the consumer. It's safer and will free up valuable commuting and travel time. The average American commutes up to 225 hours in a year. And for some context, it only takes double that to learn Spanish. Imagine what that time could do for productivity and the economy. You also see tech names like Amazon, Apple, Samsung, and Microsoft. This is because businesses also recognize the value in autonomous driving and the applications that it has for delivery, connectivity, and fleets. By achieving level 4 autonomy, fleets will have significantly lower operational costs by eliminating the need for a human driver. And lastly, if you look really closely, you'll see the names Uber and Didi, ride-hailing apps. What do they stand to gain from autonomous driving, and how will that impact transportation? So this brings me to the last layer, TaaS. Transportation as a service is a business model we're already familiar with, where you can purchase on-demand transportation without ever having to own a vehicle. Think Uber or Lyft. And in the future, TaaS will be characterized by autonomous EVs, providing on-demand transportation that are owned by fleets. And with the decrease in costs, mobility would become more affordable, enabling jobs that require commuting and reducing parking in urban spaces to make way for green space or more housing. Again, all positive impacts. So now we've arrived at what I like to call the mobility equation. Oh, sorry. The convergence of EVs with autonomous driving and TaaS will mean net positives for consumers, businesses, and the environment. This is the future of transportation. And these are the principles of why CarNext was founded. We are in the business of generating value by meeting consumers and businesses where they need to be today and in the future. We are a marketplace facilitator and a contributor to infrastructure with our system of EV-specific aftermarket services catering to both individuals and fleets. We are ready for electric for the sake of people and for the environment. So what I'd like to conclude with is this. Change is upon us and it is happening very quickly. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions because like I mentioned, the disruption that's happening will present great social and economic opportunity. But the only thing worse than missing out on an opportunity is being pushed out by its outcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. That's a very great presentation, and you truly indicate the emerging industry of electric vehicles in general. And we see that Pedro is also joining the call. So let's move to Tommy to introduce each of our very special guest speaker tonight.
All right. Yep. Well, thank you again, Shirley. I think that was really informative. I think the rising EV adoption is definitely a trend worthy to keep an eye on. And for those of you who don't know me, hi all, my name is Tommy. I'm an analyst at EqualOcean, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. Thank you for joining us at our webinar focusing on the EV industry and its future trends. We're fortunate to have invited 5 speakers with tremendous industry knowledge in their respective fields. I'm going to let each speaker introduce themselves a little bit. So why don't we start off with Sabrina from Eli Electric Vehicles.
Great. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. So I'm Sabrina. I'm currently running global strategy and business development for Eli Electric Vehicles. So we are a startup that our first product is a low-speed electric vehicle that we're currently launching the product in Europe. And we are delivering our product in 11 European countries this year. So my background is mostly in automotive and also in automotive tier 1. That I saw Nanas from Continental. I actually worked with Siemens VDO. We sold to Continental back more than 10 years ago. And then I moved to Porsche. And so I worked on the traditional combustion engine car side. And now, as Shirley said, move with the trend, move to the electric vehicle.
Well, thank you, Sabrina. And next up, we have Roger from Electric Vehicles Outlook. Go ahead, Roger.
Thanks, Tommy. Hello, everybody. I'm a storyteller on LinkedIn. I've been doing this for 15 years around electric vehicles, or as I like to call them, because I think this was the correct name, new energy vehicles. Because I think the story I'm telling, and I can see emerging, and many other people are telling, is about the shift, the massive shift between energy and mobility. And energy is shifting, as we know, to renewable energy, sustainable energy, solar, wind, and other sources. And I'd include nuclear in that, and a number of other propositions, and new mobility. And as Shirley was saying, I think this is the key thing. The paradigm shift I believe we'll see is that the ownership of vehicles will cease in a huge way, a surprising way, a way in which I think not enough people are contemplating, because owning a vehicle is the most efficient part of the vehicle. The fact of the efficiency of internal combustion to electrification, there are differences there that I think most of us are familiar with, but the real inefficiency is the 80 or 90% that asset is never used, is never utilized, and that cannot be sustained. So my storytelling on LinkedIn, which as I said, I've been doing for 15 years. I've somehow, don't ask me how it's happened. I don't actually know. I've got 300,000 followers. And I don't know how it happened. But very much as Shirley was describing, those 38 companies in your list, Shirley, because I quickly counted them on your presentation. I think the big surprise will come from some of those players in there. I think, I don't know if Pony AI was in there, but certainly Apple, Pony AI, the tech companies more than anything else, I think will come in, and I think some of the tier ones will surprise us as well. People like Bosch, people like Conti could well emerge as being key players in this, not the traditional OEMs, because as I say, my sense is we are not going to just make 80 million electric vehicles every year, because that would be madness. So that's my quick overview and flavor of where we are and where we're going.
Thank you, Roger. And then next up, we have Nun from Continental.
Hello, everyone. Hear me good?
Yep.
Good. A little bit surprised to see my sleepy face, actually. This is in the morning in China and Shanghai. So I'm Nan from Continental. I'm currently responsible for innovation and strategic cooperation for Continental China. And I go back to my history in Conti last 6 years. I was sales director for Asia, responsible for electrical vehicle business unit. Actually, I would call myself an early market contributor in the electrification market, because if you look at 6 years back, it's really vogue. I mean, people talk about electrical vehicle, but they don't see much on the road. And a lot of people, I would say half people believe that EV would come, but if you talk really to the OEMs and even tier one and colleagues, another 50% they would doubt. I mean, there's a lot of challenges for the infrastructure, charging system, the battery technology, and how the OEMs can adapt to the new technology. So there are a lot of questions, and people have doubts, really doubts, and even myself. Before that, I have like over 10 years gasoline powertrain experience, and even when I joined the role, take this responsibility, I even doubt. I mean, it's really hard to believe that the EV would take over. Well, not even now, but really EV would grow such quickly in a such quickly pace. But if you look in today, China really catching up very quickly. Last year, I think the total sales reached 3 million EVs in the field, like 15% increase, and this is very increasing. But after the sales director for Asia, and I joined another role, taking care of smart mobility, smart city business, and this is even more fun. So if you see the EV coming into the field, that it gives a change to the mobility and even to the city. And it gives you a lot of imagination that how the EV can connect to the mobility, how the EVs can connect to the city. And I can give a bit details later. So that's basically my short background introduction. Regarding Continental, I would just a bit introductions. Under this kind of trend, Continental also is changing. I mean, in terms of, as I think people knows that Continental spin off the e-powertrain or the powertrain business 2 years ago. So now it's called Vitesco technology in the field. So responsible for the e-powertrain plus the traditional gasoline engine transmission business. So it's been a standalone company. And now the holding, Continental Holding, now is also releasing a new business structure starting from this year, from business area like autonomous mobility and car networking. So this kind of two business area now we split into 5 business area, just trying to catch the trend or to make the change in this kind of new trend. So starting autonomous mobility as business area and safety motion, most likely focus on chassis components and user experience. So it's more like to increase the interaction between people and the vehicle, so as a business area, the third one. And also architecture and networking. So this is more related to the new E architecture. So it's kind of focusing high performance computer. So the vehicle eventually would be a kind of computer eventually. So this force would focus on this business area. And the last one would be even more broader, focus on smart mobility. So the Continental would run into the future with this kind of 5 business area. And below that, you see a lot of product segments. So that's Continental and myself. So thanks to talk to you guys in the morning, China.
Yeah, thanks, Nod. And then next up, we have Pedro from Great Wall Motors. Go ahead, Pedro.
Good evening and good morning to all. It's a pleasure and an honor to be present among you and to have some comments. As Tommy mentioned, I am just a humble servant within Great Wall Motors, and I am in charge of some activities in Brazil. As a piece of information, Great Wall Motors is investing something around $2 billion in Brazil. We just purchased the fixed assets of almost brand new facility, greenfield from Daimler, that quit automotive business, these models in Brazil. We are improving the facility right now and improving it to become a new standard and production and a new standard and products on Brazilian markets, aiming to export and also have a small, tiny part of Brazilian market share. The good news is Great Wall Motors intends to have this facility as the first plant south of Rio Grande that is from Mexico to Argentina, mainly for electrified vehicles. I have been working with the automotive sector from more or less 25 years now. And as Mr. Atkins mentioned, I am not only in terms of electrification, but new energy vehicles since at least 2007. First, with ethanol, pure ethanol, as a way to decrease and control CO2 emissions through the reprocess through photosynthesis of the CO2 emissions. And then later with other sources of energies. Before continue, I would like to congratulate Shirley for this tremendous presentation. The speed or the acceleration of change is amazing. And the facts you show us in the presentation are really astonishing. I think that electrification as a phenomena, it is irreversible, and there is no way back. And I will add, on my personal experience, of course, that once you drive an electrified vehicle, to return to combustion engine or to another traditional source of energy, it is very difficult. And also to congratulate Mr. Atkins on his work of storyteller, because in a certain way, to become a prophet of the future with their yearly and then for many years making points on new energy is a fantastic job. Some of the books behind me is not fake. This is my office, really. And not, I don't know if you can read, but some of the books are all books about ethanol and new energy and something like that. So, and it's not decoration. This is my real office, and it's not prepared for this meeting. Continue with Greatwell Motors in Brazil. I think the good news is we are prepared to create the first plant in Latin America, and not only from Mexico down, to have mainly electrified vehicles. This is an excellent news. No other company is making such bet in electrification or new energies or whatever. One of the ideas that probably had the privilege to be invited by EqualOcean and Mr. Tommy, me, and others to participate here is because we are committed as a company to look to another fields of energy for electrification, such as ethanol as a source for hydrogen to be used as electricity creators through electrified cells. So there is some research in Brazil, and maybe we have at Greatwell Motors a strong capacity, and I will say, I won't be humble, I'm sorry, but a good, excellent research on this matter. And maybe we can find a point of conjunction between our own experience and activities on hydrogen as an electricity generator in China, and maybe cooperate with local universities to use the rich in hydrogen molecule of ethanol plus some water to be used in solid oxide fuel cells. I heard recently that there are some recent developments inside the University of Campinas, which is a Brazilian university, with some prototypes with the reduced size and reduced weight of these solid oxide fuel cells that could eventually become a benchmark, a landmark on the conversion and destruction of hydrogen from these other sources that could be also methane or other gases, and not only ethanol, which is liquid. So again, I'm honored and proud to give my humble contribution. I am not neither, I'm close to be prepared as Sabrina with this wonderful presentation. I will like to ask her to share with me later. But I have some ideas that will be accordingly the conversation I will share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Benacorn. I want to add something because I had an interview with Mr. Benacorn before about an article of hydrogen economy in the car market. And he does mention the company has like a new approach of extracting hydrogen from ethanol, so which will be related to the renewable energy sector as well. We'll have a discussion later in the panel discussion, specifically surrounding this topic. Sorry, Tommy, to interrupt, just wanted to add this point.
Yeah, it's no problem. And last but not least, we have Jeremy from CarNext, who is also our sponsor. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hey everyone, my name is Jeremy. I'm the co-founder of CarNext. Shirley already gave a really good introduction for CarNext. Yeah, so we're our startup online platform based off Canada. Folks use EV market and EV infrastructure. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And if you don't mind, Pedro, you're going to start us off with our first question, if you're here. Hi.
Yeah, I'm here,
yeah.
so
okay, yeah.
You can fire. I will be
Okay.
very good.
Yeah, so I know this question has been discussed a lot, but I just want to hear your opinions on this. So, and obviously Shirley and Sasha, feel free to chime in if you feel like it. And so the question is, by when do you think EVs will be competitive to their internal combustion counterparts in terms of pricing and functions?
Well, in my humble opinion, on functions, EV already surpassed every single possibility of comparison with traditional energy or combustion engine vehicles. The brutal fact is a combustion engine can yield at most, in an extreme case of high efficiency, up to 35% of his power to the wheels. And in the case of an electrical engine, or an electrical motor, the electrical motor yields over 96% of his power indirectly to the wheel. So there is no point of comparison. And there are other considerations from a mechanical standpoint: less parts, less squeezes and rattle, less noise, a higher you can extract more. This is not the proper comparison. You can have more yields of power from less source. My first comment. Second comment is regarding price. I think honestly that the decrease in the cost of production of automotive batteries in one hand, and in the second hand, in another direction, the increase of the density of energy in current batteries will make probably equal the cost of production of an engine, internal combustion engine car, and an electric car around the same by 2025 at most. We, as Great Wall Motors, we are developing, we developed it already, and it started to be produced. It's in phase of production. New batteries for automobiles free of cobalt, which have a capacity of 170 watts per kilogram. So there are high density energy per kilogram and free of cobalt. And the price is decreasing very fast. So the switch or the shift will be in no more than 3 years. And this will be pushed, not pulled, by consumers. Consumer will demand this. And looking at the Shirley's charts, it will be probably as accelerated as the smartphones entrance into the market. I don't know if it's enough. Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think range will be a problem for EVs? Because I know their counterparts, internal combustion engines, they usually run higher range with fewer, less cost. So do you think that will be a problem for the EV transition?
I think that range is one of the myths about electrification. Range is needed when you run for long distances, but the brutal fact is, almost in America at least, and it is also in Brazil, I would say America, North America, Central America, and South America, no one commute more than 45 kilometers each side per day, so 90 kilometers. In that sense, any battery today yields 300 kilometers, even in the more basic models. So you should only need a charge every 3 days eventually. But the fact is, the reality is, an electric car, when you have an electric car, you behave in the same fashion when you have a cell phone. When you get into home or get in your office, you plug the phone to the charger. This is the same thing. So in fact, you never, that's why it's a myth. You never need or are concerned once you get the car on range. Yes, could be a possibility of a intercity community or interstate interstate commute. Yes, long travel, yes. But then, utterly, and I am talking from a third world country such as Brazil, where I am located right now. We have between the main cities more fast charging stations than needed given the size of the fleet. And it is becoming increasingly a business. So there are a lot of companies investing in charging as a private company to sell the energy, which is also even being twice the regular price of energy for homes or for industries, is probably 1/3 of the equivalent cost of fuel in terms of range or kilometers. So, in my humble opinion, this myth will be destroyed by reality.
Tommy, can I say something about adoption
go
rate?
ahead.
I don't think it'll be anything like people are saying, because you see these graphs that you see where people say it's exponential adoption, the growth rate will be this in 3 years, 5 years, whatever. That suggests that the production of vehicles, particularly the battery, is going to be straightforward and easy. It isn't, because at the moment, 90% of the cell production on the planet is in Asia. The biggest battery cell company in the world makes 1/3 of the battery cells that go into electric vehicles. That's CATL. If you look at the supply chains upstream into mining and mineral processing, and whether it's lithium, whether it's cobalt, whether it's manganese, whether it's graphite, whether it's anode or cathode material, the issue is the mining and mineral processing industry cannot keep pace with where we're going with gigafactories. Over 200 gigafactories on the planet. The vast majority, well over 100, are in China. China has strategically for 10 years in front of everybody. It's not been anything sinister. It's not a strange sort of thing. Everybody's seen it happen, has progressed a strategic policy of made in China 2025 with having electric vehicles, new energy vehicles at the core of that. And so it's going to be a supply constrained adoption level. That's my belief. And I know people I'm not a miner or a mineral expert myself, but I know people who are. And if you ask the experts in the field, we don't have anything like the capacity to simply deliver and hand over the switch to electric vehicles in the way people are suggesting it will happen. And it's only now that America and Europe has woken up to the fact that if you want to make electric vehicles, you have to make batteries. If you want to make batteries, you need a supply chain. So this is a fundamental issue in the adoption rate, apart from anything else, apart from the geopolitics. We have a supply constrained electric vehicle adoption path. So it won't happen in 5 years. It won't happen in 10. It might take even 15 or 20 years, more than for any other reason, because of the capacity issue in battery manufacturing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I know you just spent some time with NEO, if I'm correct. And
I did. I've been to 2 NEO days. Can I try a bit of my Chinese, by the way? Because this is something I've always believed in, that, from education comes knowledge. So this is what I do on LinkedIn. I listen to people. I go to things like Neo Day, etc. How xie xie tian tian xian sheng. I think that's right. But basically, you know, through knowledge comes progress. And I think the knowledge that Neo and others in China have seen with, and why I like new, the turn of phrase, new energy vehicles, is that Neo's proposition is, it's called Neo Power. It's not called Neo Swap. And there's the clue. Neo Power is about using the battery as an asset between renewable energy storage and electric mobility. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, and it's there for everyone to see, the strategic partnerships with Sinopec, the activity that Geely are underway with, the nearly 1,000 swap stations in China, or Neo Power stations, we should call them, are significant in my view. And I think that Li Bin and the rest of the team, this has always been an energy play equal to, or even more than, an electric mobility play. So yeah, I think Neo are a very, very interesting company.
Yeah, and I think I heard that Neo plans to have over 5,000 of those Neo Power stations in China by 2025. And just how do you see that translate to other countries?
That's a great question. It will be different because obviously there's a different structure to the economy and to society, the housing stock, etc. More mega cities in China than anywhere else. So it will be different, but I do believe it will happen. I've been to see the first one in Europe, in Norway. As you say, you saw my post, I think. I think it will be different, but I think because we're trying to build up capacity for renewable energy storage, this is where Neo are going to surprise people. I think people have just assumed it's purely a battery swap proposition, and they see it as something that doesn't make sense. If you go back to Shai Agassi, who set up Better Place 15 years ago, the whole proposition there, even then, was about building out a network of batteries to store energy. And at the same time, that battery stock, which sat in swap stations, would also then be available to put into electric vehicles as and when they were needed, especially for fleets. And the other thing that people probably haven't seen or didn't realize, I did film it, but I haven't put all of my film up yet, is that the vehicle enters the swap station automatically. This is all, and you watch the car do it. The car takes control and reverses into the swap station. There you are. You've already got, the beginnings of autonomous mobility, just as, Shirley said, transport as a service. And the other one, sorry, just to quickly finish on this, wireless charging, I think, is going to make a strong appearance as well. Because whilst I said I don't believe in mass adoption of electric passenger cars, I do believe in mass adoption of electric buses, electric taxis. And if you go to a city like Shenzhen, this is the future. This is what the future must look like, because this is about taking the most polluting vehicles off the street. They are the buses, the taxis, and the vans. So the work that BYD in particular has done, I think, is visionary. I think, there are some real things to learn here. So mass adoption of electric vehicles for those commercial fleets using battery swap or using wireless charging. And then, like I said, the passenger car thing won't happen in the way I believe people are saying. I think this is all about a paradigm shift, which we must make. And the biggest paradigm shift is using a car rather than owning a car. This is the big shift that will happen.
Definitely. You made some great points. And just going off of that, for none, like, how would mass adoption of electric fleets and adoption of charging stations impact cities, especially with more cities implementing smart city programs?
Well, I think they're completely wired into it. I think it's the same ecosystem. I think this is the whole point. The economies of scale that you get in many aspects, the connectivity and the collaboration of technologies, and especially power management, are fundamental in making a city work efficiently. When you have a smart city, we have some, but not truly smart yet in terms of what mankind is capable of. A smart human city tapping into the best of technology can be the most efficient location for human beings to have ever lived on the planet. And you know, that's where we have to go. I think Shirley said earlier on in her presentation, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. These things are happening not because of fancy pants in California or whatever in China, whether it's Xi Jinping or some engineer somewhere. These things are happening out of necessity. They're happening because we have a massive challenge of climate change, a massive challenge of air quality. It's two things that have driven electric vehicles. But you know, the necessity is such that we, you know, don't need to own cars anymore, whether they're electric or combustion. It makes no sense. You know, this doesn't happen overnight. But again, look at, for example, Renault. Renault have a new program called Mobilize, a different department, and they're focusing very strongly on subscription of vehicles, not ownership. This is where we will lose some big automotive players because they can't make this distinction between selling cars, which is what they've done for 100 years, and delivering mobility as a service, which they haven't done ever. So I think we'll see some very big car companies collapse because they won't make this transition successfully.
Right, right. What do you think, Nan?
From my personal experience, last 6 years in county, I think I would to discuss this question in two aspects. So one side is from automotive, the car itself. So the car is changing, like what we discussed, shifting from gasoline to EV. So we talk a lot about battery, better technology, the range, how far the car can go, how the battery can support this kind of long range riding. So this is one aspect, the car itself, EV cars itself. On the other side is about infrastructure, you can call it, or in the big range, you call it, big scope, you call it smart city. And the city also is changing. So there's two aspects. So the car itself, the technology also is changing dramatically. Like Roger explained, the NEO is implementing the NEO power around the city. And for example, one of my friend who is an executive in a very big company, so Willem Liebien also give him a chance to offer a very beginning NEO car, so give him a try. So he used a lot of NEO power in front of his office. So he always told me, you know, man, this is amazing. It's just 5-6 minutes and it's done, and you can use a new battery, move forward, go anywhere you want. So it's very convenient. So this is his experience about the swapping the battery. But on the other side, you know, friend, you know, during the Spring Festival, and you see a lot of news or jokes about EV cars. So people would drive the EVs back home. A lot of people, you know, play jokes, you know, 1 hour drive back home, but I have to wait 4 hours in a charging station just to make sure that I can recharge the car, you know. This is kind of joke as well. So this is happening in parallel, actually. But if you look at the government, what the government is doing, the government also is thinking about it. So now if you look at the new policy this year, the incentives, before the government would put the incentives or the what's called the money to
subsidize.
Yes. Thank you, Sabrina. Put the money into the car maker. That's you build the EVs. You know, they just give you the money to build EVs. But if you look the last 2 years, so the subsidies is going into charging industries already. So the government would say, you know what, now you build the production lines for EVs, so people is getting used to the EV driving. So now I would just to put the subsidies to the infrastructure side. Let's build more charging stations. So guys, let's do it. So this is what happening 2-3 years ago. But if you see the new policy this year, 2022, the subsidies will cut another 30% already. So this is also a big, let's say, so the government really just trying to stop the subsidies for the EV itself. So leave it more to the market balancing. So this is one side. I think on the other side, if you see last year, the government announced that they will subsidize the swapping stations. So that's why NIO is trying to boost swapping a lot. I think the plan for this year is to build another new like 1,500 swapping stations. And if you see Geely, like Roger explained, Geely also is boosting this business model as well in the market. I think there was a JV with whoever, I couldn't remember, but Geely also is stepping into the swapping station business. And there's a lot of startups. I think the famous two was Jiuxing and Aodong. So they are also drive the swapping business dramatically, not only in EVs, in passenger vehicles, but focusing a lot on the commercial side, commercial vehicles, like Roger explained. Buses, especially trucks, and this from trucks you see more value out of swapping stations, because normally if you look at the EV passengers, I would say, you know, if you look down my apartment, that you see a lot of EVs in the parking lot, but people don't drive even the cars. They would just go to the subway station, take the subway to the offices back and forth, maybe just in the weekend. So the utility rate of the vehicle is very low for the passenger vehicle side. But if you trucks, so normally they work 24 hours. They use diesel, right? So
now, if I may, just a quick comment.
Yeah.
This reality you depict is applicable probably in China or maybe in other developed country in which public transportation has a good quality, it is safe and reliable. But this is not the reality in many countries. And I will dare to say that not even in some part of the United States, public transportation in some
most
cities,
of the parts of United States, you're not taking on public transportation.
Yes, you cannot rely on public transportation. So the situation of having an electrical vehicle is absolutely different. And I am not only mentioning cars, because you if you have a smart city, for instance, you can have a smaller vehicles such as mopeds or bicycles or even electric motorcycles to go 1 mile, 2 miles away, and that's it, and maybe have the car for long trips. I'm sorry, but I have to make the point. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand, Pedro. Thanks for the comments. Yes. But anyway, this is happening in China from different aspects.
Yeah, well, just follow Nan's thoughts. I actually think, oh, Nan, you're frozen. All right. And so a couple of things. I think Nan mentioned that one thing is on infrastructure. So what we've seen in the industry, especially that I've worked with different infrastructure company before as well. So back in 2006, when I was working with at Siemens, I was already working on smart charging projects in China. China has a very unique position to have a government-dominant, policy-driven infrastructure building, because China only has two utility companies, State Grid and Southern Grid, which is very unique. Like in America, we have hundreds of utility companies, right? But what we've seen in the industry over the years, almost in every single part of the world, was the first cold start of all these infrastructure building was mostly sponsored by government grants. And then when they reach to a certain point, you see private capital comes in. And then you see utility company rebate comes in, because ultimately they're still selling utilities, right? And now a lot of parts of the world, because of the maturity of the infrastructure, then the government subsidies start to retreat, like in China, like in certain European countries, right? And for electric vehicle to be a real player in the market, infrastructure has to go first. So Tommy, you asked about range anxiety. The anxiety actually doesn't come from the battery capacity. It comes from how quickly and how often can I charge my car, right? And so you have to have the charging station coverage even more than the gas station. Why is that? Because the throughput is different. It is very uniquely tied to the charging, the electric car charging station. It is a big piece of commercial real estate topic nowadays. I work with real estate people as well, because like we have to look at all the distribution of the charging facility, right? However, it is also a big drive for retail business. Why is that? They're using the charging station as their whole like attraction for their customer, because I can give you free charging if you stay longer, right? For the retail business, all you want is they can stay longer. It will also change the format of the traditional gas station. So now the EV charging station along the highway, because you need to be there, your car needs to be there for 40 minutes to charge. What do? You'll grab something to eat, right? And so as long as the battery for the long haul travel, as long as the battery can last for 3-4 hours highway drive, then the customer are going to be comfortable with it, because they anyway need to take a stop. As human being, you're not going to drive for 8 hours straight, right? Like I like road trip, but I need to take breaks. So that's on the infrastructure side. Back to the car side. So now we're talking about electric vehicle as a whole. In reality, we're actually having like so many different segments, right? Roger mentioned that the heavy truck, right? And then so let's say we can divide it into cars moving goods and cars moving people. And in the cars moving goods, there are heavy truck. So and then the minivan type, like all the Amazon delivery truck. Right, and then to the last mile delivery. So those are requires much smaller vehicles and to be more nimble, to be more energy efficient, right? And on the people moving part, same thing, performance cars, right? Same thing as on the combustion engine side, you have performance cars, you have urban mobility. So my current company we are in the urban mobility sector, right? Roger mentioned that the current mineral production not going to supply enough battery needs. This is true. This is like everybody works in the industry on the car side, on the battery side, know about it, right? Like we need to fight for batteries. I need to put down order for batteries way ahead than I have like my production plan, because everybody is fighting for the battery, right? CATL is building, they plan to build even factories in America and somewhere else. But even if you have all these production capacity, you don't have all the mineral supplies, you're not going to get there. Of course, like I'm advising lots of auto tech company, and I see a lot of new technology coming in, right? So use less precious metal and also high energy density, and also using different format, things like that. However, we need to know that electric vehicle is a very safety sensitive sort of product. So for a new technology to be commercialized on a production car, like that takes time. So I would say at least for the next 5 years, we're still working with the current stage battery technology and format. So this will be one restraint on the vehicle production. But if we are only going to drive in the city, meaning that, so let's take America out of the picture. So we're looking at European cities, right? Most people are not commute long distance to work. They live in the city, they work in the city. And those cities usually having a pretty low speed limit because they have narrow streets, it's small and all that. So you need a performance car driving in a city which have a 45-kilometer speed limit, which I would say most parts of the Europe. I think London the same way in the city London, because I talked to the London city office before. And so think about if you don't need a performance car and using a smaller vehicle with a smaller battery capacity, so you're saving money on the car cost, you're saving money on the energy cost, you're saving money on the battery, right? So
Sabrina, sorry, can I just, what's the best-selling electric car in China then at the moment? It's the Hongwang Mini, isn't it?
Exactly. That's also the world's second best-selling vehicle last year, right? So this is, we are seeing the trend of like smaller vehicles designed for city commute, right? So I don't know the battery size of Hongguang Wuling, but I know our battery size. Our battery size is 1/5 of a Tesla Model 3, right? And so like the sort of saving on energy and on the environmental impact we can do by driving a smaller car. And then plus with the topic that Roger mentioned, that idling of the vehicles, right? So we need to increase the utility of those vehicles. So with the fleet share, then for the fleet operator, what they care about is operation efficiency and cost, right? Yes, like you can have a fleet of Tesla, which looks very nice. However, your capital investment, your finance cost, your operation, and also your maintenance is going to be way more expensive than a fleet of our cars or a fleet of Wuling, right? And does your customer really care about a car that they drive 3 miles to commute to work? Like what brand that is? Do you ever care the bus brand you ride on? Never, right? And so I completely agree with Roger that there will be some car brands gonna disappear in the future, because that's gonna fundamentally change the structure of automotive business. So if you think about it, then you will have those cars only for fleet, like white labeling. You need these functionality, the safety feature and all that. But you don't necessarily need all the fancy stuff. Like, I don't care whether you are using like walnut wood or like real leather, all these things doesn't matter anymore. Then you have the premium sector that people still going to individually own the car, right? So I'm very old fashioned that way. I have to have one car at home so that I have the freedom. Driving for me is a freedom. And also I'm a hobbyist, right? I like racing. So that's different. Like some of my friends still ride horses, right? But for the majority of your daily commute, you're not going to use that. The majority of your daily commute, you're going to do a subscription car, or you're just going to do Uber. Or
you speak a lot of sense, Sabrina. Honestly,
right?
Everything, I'm nodding a lot here because we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Speak a lot of sense.
So, and then back to your question on charging or swapping. That's also really depend on where do you use the car, right? China is a very unique place that's built so suitable for swapping because of the city density, right? So I originally from Shanghai. Shanghai is a city of like 26 million people, right? And it has more population than many countries, right? With that density, you cannot afford to have charging station. You need to have car sits there for 40 minutes. Think about that real estate cost. It's impossible. Then swapping is the only option for a high density area. And that high density area is very common in China, because China is very unique. The whole economic line is basically only on the east side of the coastline. And the density there is super, super high. And there are lots of countries has that problem. Even America, like most of the economic activity happens on both sides of the coast, right? But if we are taking that out to like let's say California, like most parts of California, we don't have a land issue, right? For a swapping station to work, you need frequency. So meaning how many cars going through every day to justify the investment. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
However, swapping station works perfectly, as Roger pointed out, for autonomous driving. Because for autonomous driving, you want the car to be run 24/7 without a stop. That's very different from human driving. Human has to sleep, so you always have time to charge. For autonomous driving, you want the car to run 24/7. Then swapping make perfect sense. So I would say swapping versus charging mainly depends on where do you use the car and for what purpose you're using the car and what type of car you're using. So I would think these two solutions and design will always be there, right? From automotive industry, swapping has a different design on the car. And you also need to worry about that, right?
Yes,
However,
if I may.
Yes.
The problem with swapping is justly the point you mentioned, design. To make this feasible, the battery should not have a mass over 100 kilograms. Even if the swapping is made on mechanisms or robots that take and put another one. So this is the first problem. The second problem is standards. If the automakers decided to have a common standard on the plug-in and the size of the battery, it will help a lot in swapping. Otherwise, will be limited to a certain design, to a certain kind of vehicles of a certain brand. And I don't know if it is from an economical standpoint feasible. I do agree with you in highly density population areas. Swapping is the only solution because you just don't have space or capacity in the grid to transport to everyone the energy necessary to have this charged. But it will demand a lot of lobby within the industry, I mean, to convince the automakers, us.
Yes, totally agree.
Agree on a standard for swappable, I don't know if this word exists.
Yeah, swappable batteries, exactly.
Swappable
Completely
batteries.
agree on that point. Whenever I see a swapping car, like coming from automotive, I always worry about their crash test. Because you have such a huge moving parts on inside of your car, and it's so heavy, and it is also probably like one thing you're going to worry about safety the most on the car, and like I'm always worried about the crash test, right? But I'm sure that they have a solution for that now. I think Pedro's second point is very, very important. Is like if we don't have a universal standard for those batteries, what we are seeing is basically like one battery only serves one brand, and then you'll have so many different swapping stations serving so many different brands. That's also a repetitive investment. And on the battery itself, that if you have more universally applicable battery, then on the resource side, you can save a lot more. And also on the secondary usage of battery, right? today, the EV industry just started about 10, 12 years ago. So we're seeing the first batch of the battery retiring. And those battery can be reused if we have proper technology.
And can I just say, Sabrina, reuse, not recycled. I think people are making too big a thing of recycling batteries.
Exactly.
It's crazy when you look at the technology and the sophistication of putting a battery pack together to only use it for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. This is crazy. So engineering batteries so that they can come out of vehicles and into renewable energy storage for another maybe 10 years, maybe even 20 years. That again is one of the benefits of letting a system like battery swap operate, because that manages the charging much more efficiently. Inside the power stations, they supercool the batteries when they charge them fast. That doesn't happen when you fast charge your vehicle at a Tesla point or whatever. And I know people say, oh, batteries are lasting a lot longer. We didn't think they would be as good as they are. Well, I'm sorry, but the majority of people buying Teslas are relatively well-off people that don't do tens of thousands of miles. So of course the batteries are lasting better than people thought. So, you know, there's a number of things here that we have to get our heads around. I think the fixation on fast charging to some extent is a disaster waiting to happen. If you read your warranty book of any electric vehicle, it tells you not to fast charge your vehicle regularly. But we're setting up all these charging facilities everywhere. What do they offer? Fast charging, 100 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts. You know, when people think the electric vehicle job is simple and it's over and it's like that, there is so much more to happen. There's so much more complexity in it. And the sooner people understand that, plan that into their business model. You're right. Again, you spoke very much, Sabrina, about CapEx and OpEx. Fundamentally, in all of this, it's got to be an economic proposition. Yeah, save the planet. Yes, save the kids' health, air quality, for sure. But unless you're actually running a profitable enterprise, unless this actually works as a business model, forget it. It's not going to happen, you know. So yeah, you've made a lot of sense. But listen, I'm getting to the point where I need to go to bed soon.
Yeah, well, just speed this along. Yeah, I definitely agree with what all of you said, and I think like brands, they like to tend to differentiate themselves with what kind of batteries they use. So just going off of that, for Jeremy, with the functionalities of EV closing into the traditional vehicles, how will rideshare and car rental markets boost the EV transition?
Well, like over the years, we have seen strong demands grow for EVs. The product offers of automakers has increased, like all kinds of brands releasing their EV brands, BMW, Audi, Mercedes. And then the new technology just changed our life for a better level. I think for the price of the new EVs has already become like more cost competitive, but still it carries a bit more premium. So when consumers are choosing their next vehicle purchase, used EV just break down the price barrier. Also, the cost of the ownership is much lower. Having a used EV option will increase the adoption rate, making the transaction to EVs also faster. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, just going back to what Sabrina said earlier, and this question is for Sabrina, and like tech giants like Apple, they're entering the EV games, right? And
Yes.
I think Apple is looking to launch their own EV by 2025.
Yes.
So can you give me some advantages and disadvantages of these tech companies comparing to the traditional automakers?
Yes. So I'm also very curious about what kind of iCar they're going to bring up. But given like Apple has a very strong product design, I think like the industry is very curious or looking at that product now. I think they are they are cooperating with Hyundai right now, or like for their vehicle manufacturer. I think like we've seen the traditional vehicle companies are moving towards the EV. So you look at Toyota, look at Volkswagen. Volkswagen has this giant roadmap that basically they're replacing every single of their combustion engine car by EV. I think by 2030, I think that was the timeline. And then looking at GM, basically made the similar announcement. So all the traditional vehicle company came out and say that we are going to completely replace our combustion engine car. And then there's the Tesla, sort of the side of the game. And then there are lots of new EV company in China. And I think two things are very different if you look at these two sides. One thing is for the traditional vehicle company, their way of thinking is basically we're changing a power source. So the cars more or less stay similar, at least the first time they're hitting the market, right? And so we're just changing a power source and changing some features to go with it. And if we look at Tesla type of car, they came completely with the idea of, okay, we're building a car, but not really a car. It is a computer on wheels, right? And then we'll try to come up with the features actually the younger generation, the people who is more like tech native would want. And so your driving experience is very different when you're driving those new type of EVs and also the new Chinese brands and all that. And that's why it has a very popular adoption among the younger generation, because they're more tech native, they're more comfortable with these sort of like things, right? However, coming from the automotive industry, sometimes to me that these type of the side of the company having a little bit too software approach to it. So as a traditional vehicle company, usually safety test is one of the most important things before everything goes to the market, right? Now works for Continental, like, I don't know how many like testing stuff they need to do before they're shipping the stuff as like tier 1 to the automotive for final assembling, right? And but on the side, like Tesla has done lots of like things. I'm just like, okay, you guys are a bunch of software engineer. You're just like launch a product. Oh shit, things not working, then we'll fix it. But the thing is that this is a vehicle that you're going to sit in there, your family going to sit in there, and you do want them to be safe, and also not claiming an ADAS system as autonomous driving system, things like that, right? And so I would say for a very long period of time, both sides going to coexist. However, the traditional automotive side will also catch on more on the product design to be more customer centric, meaning that they have to change their product design philosophy a little bit, not only changing the power source, but also changing their user interface and how the younger generation of customer are going to use the car, right? You see the new infotainment system out all the time, new software stack, like phone control and everything. So we see a paradigm shift on the software change in the traditional vehicle side as well, right? We, like my current company, probably more belong to the side. Like, so we are designing the product with like just how the user behavior going to impact on the day-to-day driving. That's where we come from, right? But since our people is coming from the traditional automotive, so we also do regular testing. So I think combining these two sides would be the best for the future, because no matter whether we're doing subscription, fleet, or individual ownership, safety is still going to be the most important thing.
Sabrina, if I echo to your comment.
Yeah.
And yes, and this is very interesting. And I will summarize what you said. It was one sentence. And this is what I shared last year in the Huawei Eco Partner Conference. as software-defined vehicle.
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly what you said. So software means features, and vehicles is vehicles, right? So on one side, features that explains user experience, for example, and a lot of apps like the iPhone that you like the Apple Store that you can find a lot of features, apps. But on the other side, vehicle is vehicle. When you talk about vehicle, it's a moving mobility equipment. Let's put it in this way. So it's related to a lot of safety or more on the functionality, right? Durability.
Tommy, Mr. Chairman, permission to go to bed.
Oh yeah, we're ending this right now, so I know it's getting really late.
Roger.
Bye, Roger. Talk
Bye,
to you
Roger.
on
Everybody.
LinkedIn.
Great talk, Roger.
Yeah. Please,
Nice.
please connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with everybody. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Banan.
Yeah. We're actually gonna end really soon, but before we end, can everyone just go around, say, like, based on where you're located, which EV brand would you choose if you were to get one today? Sabrina, why don't you start?
Okay, I am based in Silicon Valley, California, and Tesla headquarters is like 25 miles from where I live. However, I myself, coming from where I come from, that I'm actually gonna choose a German EV just because I feel way more comfortable with their approach to product. So my current choice is Audi e-tron.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. What about you, Jeremy?
So I'm based on Toronto, Canada. My preference will be Tesla. Because the system and the technology that Tesla using nowadays, also the battery technology, right? I think it's like way ahead than other brands. And I'm also trust in Elon Musk, right? So yeah, that's why I choose.
Yes, you're a fan of him.
See?
Definitely. What about you, Nan?
Well, I'm based in Shanghai. I like Jeremy. I like Tesla, but I would choose NIO because the only simple reason I think NIO is bigger. Let's say.
What about you, Pedro?
Well, I will choose my own brand, of course, Ola. That's it. Any Ola. It's a wonderful, wonderful vehicle. But this is unfair with you because I have to defend in any case Ola. But they are fantastic, fantastic. And I challenge to you that are living in Zhongguo to take a ride in Ola. You will be amazed. We, as a company, have the idea. We have few specific mandates, if I may, for the future. First is we want to go from low carbon to zero carbon quickly. Second, we are committed to intelligentization, if I may, to our vehicles. Our vehicles are right now truly a computer with wheels. And as we proceed and progress in our heavy investments on R&D, in bases in China, some activities in Germany, some in the United States, on new technologies and new chips, semiconductors. We hope that our products will be more and more intelligent, more and more autonomous, more and more safe, and more interconnected, not only between them, but also with the infrastructure. So it will be a shift in terms of perception. I'm amazed with all you more younger people than me. Obviously, you all are. How relevant is the aspect of technology in terms of driving experience? I will say that any electric car is better than one engine combustion car. And I will say more, even hybrid cars, but truly hybrid, I mean, with the propulsion on electricity and a small engine to charge it and extend the range, is superior to any other in terms of driving experience to any other pure combustion engine vehicle. So I was thinking about the comments of Mr. Atkins in terms of he's kind of pessimistic on batteries improvements, and I don't know where's my phone, but every single year the batteries of the cell phones are smaller and they're more energy dense. When the first cell phone was launched, probably none of you were born at that time, but I was born. I were alive. It was a huge thing, like a thermic bottle, and 75% of the weight was a battery that lasts 30 minutes. 30 minutes and 5 in conversation. So we have advanced a lot. I have a strong faith in humanity and human beings and our capability to improve little by little every day. And that's why I still believe that the battery will be solved by 2025 in terms of cost. Yes, maybe there will be some availability problems. But remember, I don't know if you're aware who is the major lithium producer in the world. Most people don't know. It's Australia. It's not Argentina or Chile or other place. It's in Australia. 50% of all lithium out of in the world they produce in Australia, and they have capacity to double, triple, 7 times fold can increase the output without any problem. Without any problem, even considering ecology and ecosystem. So I am an optimistic, and I'll remain in that fashion.
Yeah,
I think like the current limit is actually on cobalt, is not on lithium. So that's like the bottleneck right now. And what you mentioned is the cobalt-free battery, right? So those are the future of the battery industry, or at least the industry is betting on that. And also retrack, Pedro reminded me. So the reason I'm choosing not our own car is because where I live, I need to get on highway to commute. So whenever I'm in our company headquarters, of course, I'll drive an Eli car. That's our own car, which I highly recommend for city commute.
Do you think remote work or education will impact sales of NEVs?
Yes, I think so. Because what we've seen on the stats for the last 2 years, because of the remote work being a predominant form in many parts of the world, people actually drive less for commute. And so their commute circle becomes smaller. Then what they're doing is they only need to get like groceries and pick up some laundries, like things like that. So the neighborhood electric vehicle become way more popular. So our current problem is not the order. I have enough order. Like our current problem is delivery, right? So because the demand is so high for past 2 years, this is also driven by remote work. You're absolutely right.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have. So before we go, I want to thank you all again for participating in our webinar. And for those who tuned in, thank you. And also thank you to Carnex for sponsoring this event. And we really appreciate if you would check out our EqualOcean.com website. There are a lot more analysis on the subject we discussed today. So thank you again, and hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.